Hello, my name is Cody Price and I just want to welcome everyone. It is now 1 o'clock, so we'll begin our presentation shortly. Today on March 25th, we'll have a presentation on planning for an aging society, technologies for safe transportation mobility, given by Dr. Kim. For help during today's webcast, please feel free to type your questions in the chat box found in the webinar toolbar to the right of your screen, or call 1-800-263-6317. For content questions, please feel free to type those in the questions box and we'll be able to answer those at the end of the presentation during the question and answer session. Here's a list of our participating chapters, divisions, and universities, and I just want to send a personal thank you out to the Technology Division for sponsoring today's webcast. Here's a list of our upcoming webcasts. Our next one will be on April 1st with the new tools for public participation, possibilities, and pitfalls. And then we'll have our next one on April 8th, which is an ethics webinar, and that will be on a framework for decision making. And then on April 15th, we'll have campus planning for pedestrians and bicyclists. And then we'll start into our May 6th webinars. You can find a complete listing for 2011 and also register for your webcast of choice at www.utah-apa.org/webcasts. To log your CM credits for attending today's session, please go to www.planning.org/CM, select activities by date, and then select today's date, Friday, March 25th, and then it will be located underneath Planning for an Aging Society. This is up right now, so at the conclusion of today's webinar, you can go there and log your session. We are also recording today's webinar, so you'll be able to find a video recording and PDF of today's session at www.utah-apa.org/webcast-archive, and this should be up by Monday. At this time, I would now like to hand it over to Dr. Kim, who will be introducing, or who will be producing our presentation today. Dr. Kim is an assistant professor of urban planning and design at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. He received a PhD degree in urban design and planning from the University of Washington. Dr. Kim has expertise in urban transportation, the built environment, and traffic safety, and his research has been focused on aging population in relation to his expertise. His papers have appeared in major journals including Transportation Research Part A, Accident Analysis and Prevention, Journal of Safety Research, Transportation Research Record, Annals of Regional Science and Environment and Planning B. He is currently an editorial advisory board member of Accident Analysis and Prevention, the most prestigious journal in traffic safety and injury prevention. Now I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Kim. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to present my research on aging and transportation today. Oh, sorry. Everybody knows that the size and proportion of the older population is growing. So, in particular, the baby boomer has been is turned to 65 from this year. So the older population in year 2000 was only about 13% of the total U.S. population. But it is expected that the population increased to 72 million and will comprise of 20% of total U.S. population in 2030. Many people are already familiar with fiscal impact of this increasing older populations. But we believe that there are tremendous planning implications associated with this significant increase in older population. This graph shows somehow kind of demographic changes in the United States from 1900 to year 2030. As you can see here, you see a dramatic change in population structure in the United States. I think before we talked about the transportation issues associated with the significant increase in older population, I think I want to present the population distribution of the older population in our metropolitan areas. The Gutowski and Field actually introduced the term called a graying of suburbia. This means that our suburbanization that occurred in our society is coincided with the increase in older population in suburbs. And today, in fact, the majority of older populations live in suburban communities. I want to show one of my the research which is published in this year in Honors of Regional Science regarding spatial distribution of older populations. I conduct studies about this regional distribution of older populations for the Central Puget Sound region in Washington. So I simply used the location quotient method to show the relative concentration of older population in the Puget Sound regions. So the map shows that the older populations on the Seattle area. So if you are not really familiar with this Seattle metropolitan region, that just it may not be easy to understand, but the dark brown area is basically downtown areas of Seattle. But this regional distribution has been changed over the decades. Now I want to show 70, 80, and 1980s and 1990 and 2000s. This shows the difference between in 1970 and 2000 in terms of the spatial distribution of older populations. As you can see here, the graying of suburbia has occurred at least in the Seattle metropolitan regions. Many people think that the seniors are just moving to nursing homes when they face physical challenges, but less than 5% of the older populations actually reside in nursing homes. Of course, the percentage of living in nursing home increase as age increases, but still, only about 24% of older populations age 85 plus live in nursing homes. Many studies have shown that the older populations prefer to stay in their own homes, even when they have some health problems and have disabilities that somehow limit their mobilities, rather than moving to nursing home facilities. There have been a number of studies showing that the urban areas will have a new renaissance because the older population may move from suburban communities to urban communities. That assumption is largely based on life course theory. So Peter Rossi published a landmark of books regarding the residential mobilities. And in this study, he basically argued that the life course is a primary residential mobility factor. And many people agree with him. So many studies recently shows that the many older populations tend to like urban amenities, a more central location with high accessibilities. This is very intuitive, somehow intuitive expectations, because when baby boomers become empty nesters, there is no reason for them to maintain a 4-bedroom or 5-bedroom single-family homes. Because quite often, having fixed incomes may not having a large single-family home not feasible. However, still, the aging in place has been widely observed, and there has been no report that indicating that there has been significant racial movement from suburban communities to urban communities among seniors. There have been many actually studies that support the arguments against so-called gray flight, which means people moving from suburban communities to urban communities. The Burkhardt actually report that the older populations do not consider moving as a means to improve mobility. Also, the one Harvard study actually published by Lawlers argue that the aging in place with its supportive community systems is a way it's the best strategies in an aging societies. Everybody knows that the current Medicare, Social Security, and Medicare systems have tremendous challenges. And then we know that the retired seniors, many of them, are not in good shape financially. There have been interesting programs. It's called Money Follows the Person programs to somehow encourage people move up from nursing home or long-term care facilities to save the money. The one AARP studies, actually this study was appeared in USA Today, saying indicates that nursing home cares cost about $75,000 per patient each year. However, the meal delivery service and daily visit healthcare service for those seniors may only cost $18,000 per year on average. Somehow this indicates that it is very important to somehow keep the seniors in their home and live in their home as a way of aging in a fiscally challenging societies we are facing. My actually studies, I conducted kind of intra-regional residential mobility of all the populations. So I used principal component analysis and then used actually the population density and median residential building area build and retail and medical service accessibilities as a measure of urban environment. So this the principal component analysis it shows that actually this map shows kind of level of urbanization in the Seattle metropolitan areas. So dark blue areas indicate more urbanized areas, and yellow areas indicate less urbanized areas. And then I compare the before the urban index before residential movement and urban index after residential movement. And then I actually divide this mover into 3 age groups. The younger age groups, age 20 to 29, and middle age group, age 30 to 59, and older age groups, age 60 plus. And as you can see here, the younger populations are more likely to live in urban areas, and seniors are more likely to live in less urbanized areas. The post-urban index indicates that that's a urban level of urbanization of their the communities after the residential movement. As you can see here, the younger groups are more likely to move to less urbanized areas, while the seniors tend to move to more urbanized areas. But this index difference indicates the level of difference between the old residential neighborhood and the new residential neighborhood. If you can see here, the index difference is greater among the younger households, while the older households have smaller the differences. The moving distance also indicates shows some things. The younger households have a larger moving distance compared to older households. I think this is my the conclusion that from this study is that the older households still move more to urbanized areas, but there is no dramatic suburban to urban migrations as many studies somehow predict. So the conclusion of my this research is that the large scale somehow a heavy level of suburban to urban migration is not found, and the suburban communities need to address the housing needs of those older populations, while it is necessary to somehow investigate why the older populations are not really moving to the urban areas that may have more housing options and better accessibility. One of my studies, I conducted studies on housing and neighborhood choice of the older population using American Housing Survey data that actually published in 2009 American Housing Survey data. So I compare the residential. So I investigate the type of neighborhood and type of the housings. And then I found that about 58% of moves among the older population age 65 plus occur to suburban and exurban areas. Also, I found that the people who previously lived in single-family homes are also more likely to move to single-family homes in central city, even suburban and exurban communities. One important thing I found from this study is that people who moved for lower housing costs are more likely to move to multi-unit housing in suburban communities, not to multi-unit housing in urban communities. So now we have so far discussed about the residential distribution of the older populations and their residential mobility patterns. Now actually it's time to somewhat discuss about the transportation implication, transportation mobility issues among the elderly given their residential patterns and their residential patterns. Transportation mobility is a very important element of everybody's quality of life. Aging and is not does not necessarily mean that the seniors are more likely to stay at home. In fact, the older population has more time for the non-home activities, and they need more social and healthcare services. But the non-automobile alternatives are not really feasible in many suburban and exurban communities because of density issues. Many studies have shown that a personal automobile are the most popular mode of transportation, while the public transit is the least popular transportation mode. Also, it shows that the public transit does not really help to resolve mobility problems among the older population. Also, the main study shows that the mobility substantially declines when the senior populations stop at driving or reduce driving. So these studies indicate that the personal automobile is very important to keep the mobility among older populations. Also, one of my studies has found that the urban form is not significantly associated with the mobility level when the mobility level is controlled by vehicle accessibilities, income, and other personal and household characteristics. However, one of my other study indicates that the older population is more likely to consider public transit when those public transits are existing within walking distance. Also, there are some important issues in transportation among the older populations. There are clearly a transportation disadvantaged groups among the older populations. Those are people with lower income and older females, particularly older minority females. Some studies shows that the older females are more self-regulating and then not to as regulating driving to minimize the potential crashes or accidents. This highway statistic 2008 shows a dramatic difference between older males and older females in terms of driver license holding. As you can see in this table, older females are far less likely to have a driver's license. And one study actually shows that a significant number of older women are just giving up their license even though they still can drive. So we can somehow see here that the older females can face a more significant challenges in mobilities, in particularly suburban and exurban areas where the alternate transportation modes are not really feasible. I conducted one study based on the AARP's survey in 2004. In this study, I actually investigated subjective level of transportation mobility instead of objective measures. So objective measures may be the distance of driving and time they spending in driving or number of trip frequencies. But here, this AARP survey asked whether the seniors have missed any activities due to the lack of transportation. Then I found that from this survey data, 36.6% of survey participants, the older seniors, experienced a certain level of transportation deficiency. And then the almost 20% of them reported that they have the mobility frequently or occasionally. In this actually data, I found that the minority females, also the low-income seniors, are more likely to experience the transportation deficiency. Also, I found that the living in suburban communities is associated with a greater transportation deficiency, while the activity accessibilities within a high level of accessibility within walking distance improves transportation deficiencies among the seniors who do not drive. So this means that the accessibility matters to those who do not drive. However, the availability of public transit service within walking distance didn't actually affect the transportation deficiency of the elderly in the survey data. The survey data also actually asked the transportation alternatives to the seniors when they can no longer drive. And as you can see in this table, about 59.4% of seniors respond that they may expect getting a ride with a family members or friends. Public transportation is only 13%, and senior community van is 11.5%. Paratransit is only 3.1%. So as you can see here, the personal automobile is a major mode of transportation that the senior who cannot drive in the future may expect to use. Some other studies indicate that given the built environment, driving a private car will remain as an important mode of transportation, and then we need to somehow focus on this private automobile transportation to improve seniors' mobilities. So Rosenblum argued that the most promising focus may be on keeping older people driving longer in an aging society. And many studies actually indicate that the public transit services, including special, the paratransit services, will never meet the emerging needs of the aging populations in our society. So in terms of how to have the older populations mobile and keep active, it is very important to somehow facilitate the older drivers' travel need using our personal automobiles. So, for example, adopt various kind of vehicle technology to facilitate driving and overcome some physical and cognitive problems of older drivers. Also, tax and other type of incentives to somehow lower the cost of purchasing those technologies, and there's some improving kind of road environments like intersection or parking and traffic signal and signs can be an important way to somehow facilitate the help, facilitate drivings of older population. I feel that the technological advancement, I think many people will agree on this. Technological advancement is a lot faster than change in the built environment. There have been some studies shows that we need to somehow transform or change our built environment to facilitate transportation needs of the older population. But personally, I think that may not be feasible. Let's talk about some issues associated with older drivers. As we know and expect, older drivers are more likely to be seriously injured in crashes. And some study shows that the older drivers are also more likely to be involved in crashes, in considering their vehicle miles of traveled. In particular, the older drivers are overrepresented in intersection crashes. So even NHTSA reports that so how to improve left turn conditions for the older driver at intersection is an important issue in an aging society. The graph shows the motor vehicle crash death rate by ages and genders, and shows that the male drivers higher crash death rate. But as you can see, the older drivers, ages 70 or plus, you can see significant increases from ages 70 and 74 among older drivers. Of course, they are still a lot relatively safer than the teen-age drivers. The right graph shows the passenger vehicle fatal crash involvement rate by driver ages. As you can see here, the fatal crash involvement rate significantly increased from ages 75 or plus. So many older drivers are self-regulating their driving since they know the potential risk associated with driving as they face physical and cognitive challenges. So they tend to avoid nighttime driving and then tend to use familiar routes and tend to avoid driving in busy hours. There are some couple of things that somehow we need to understand about the older drivers and their safeties. Many studies shows that the biological age matters, not the chronological ages. So it is very important to somehow have a kind of comprehensive screening and assessment of the older drivers. So it is very important to make sure that those senior drivers have a necessary and skills for a safe driving. Also, it is very important to let them or to develop somehow the ability to use safe driving technologies that somehow available these days. The older drivers tend to have a number of functional problems as they age. Reduced kind of mobility and flexibilities, particularly neck and head movement, and reduced range of motions, and hearing loss, and slow reaction times, and then visual acuities and peripheral visions. Also, the kind of reduced kind of ability to deal with high cognitive driving tasks, and then greater susceptibility to distractions. So the FHWA somehow proposed some engineering improvements to help older drivers. That includes designs. For example, the kind of minimum lane width is 12 feet minimum width, and positive kind of offset of opposing left-turn lanes, because many older drivers are very vulnerable in left-turn movements. Also, the 90-degree intersection angles, so they don't need to turn their head too much when they actually make a turns. A wider corner curve, or raised channelizations with sloping kind of curve medians. Those are basically design and improvements can be done for older drivers. For signs, oversized regulatory and warning signs, and the redundant street name signings, and large letter size, and overhead light kind of signs, and high intensity kind of reflective shadings for easy recognitions, and lane use control signs, and protected permitted left-turn signal phases. Also, in terms of for the pavement markings, the FHWA recommends kind of retroreflective pavement and curb markings, and then wider pavement markings. For traffic signal operations, they recommend a reading protected left-turn phase, also use of red left arrows, and then use the kind of recommended yellow change interval and all red clearance interval times to compensate a kind of slow reaction times of the older drivers. Also for pedestrians, FHWA recommends to somehow reduce the walking speed for the crosswalk time. So 3.5 feet per second or even 3 feet per second is recommended for crosswalk crossing times. I have often actually observed seniors who stuck in the middle of the roadway because they were not able to cross the crosswalk because of short crossing signal time. Also, the FHWA recommends traffic signal hardware. So, for example, install larger signal lengths and more overhead traffic signals, and also use the black plates with signal traffic signals to improve the visibility of traffic signals. Also, there are some in-vehicle technologies that are available to enhance the safe mobility of the older populations. For example, adaptive cruise control, even in the collision mitigation braking systems. Also, many different types of warning systems. The collision warnings and spawning systems, backup warnings with rear view cameras are readily available. Also, some automobile companies provide night vision systems. Also, the navigation system is pretty common. Also, the assisted parallel parking systems are available. Also, the automatic crash notification system is also available. All those in-vehicle technologies can help the older drivers significantly. This the picture shows the Volvo's new technology to help older drivers. The left, the picture shows see-through a filler that helps the somehow the blind spots. I think this is very interesting. The progress, I think, for the older drivers. Also, the left side photo shows the crash avoidance systems, particularly for the pedestrians. Also, I want to show some other alternative transportation mode for the seniors. The one is first one is iBot wheelchairs. As you can see here, this wheelchair is more like just a regular wheelchair, but it can somehow it has a lot more functions. The iBot wheelchair used Segway technologies. However, it has been discontinued, as far as I know, due to an insufficient demand. It is also expensive. It costs about $23,000, and the battery it costs also $1,200. Also, the Medicaid, actually, based on a newspaper article I found, the Medicaid was somehow resistant to support this iBot wheelchair because they think that it was kind of experimental and unnecessary. However, this iBot wheelchair has tremendous actually capabilities. It basically can, the people on wheelchairs can even use stairs. Also, it can actually elevate itself, so you can make easy eye-to-eye contact with others. Also, this iBot wheelchair is extremely stable. As you can see in this picture, that the person trying to somehow push it down, but it still can stand safely. I also want to somehow introduce a new technology that somehow helps the mobility of all the populations. This system is called HAR, Hybrid Assistive Limb. It's actually developed by a Japanese company, Cyberbeam. This is very looks like a very futuristic. This HAR-5 Type B is a kind of wearable robot. It weighs around 23 kilograms, right, for the full body. But this system for only low body for walking, and it only weighs 15 kilograms. This is a basic use battery drive charge batteries, so you can charge at home. Also, this wearable robot can operate approximately 2 hours 40 minutes for daily activities. Standing up from chair, walking, climbing up, downstairs, even hold and lift heavy objects. So you use hybrid control systems that actually it has proven actually technologies. And also this system works in indoor and outdoor. And I have found that this company actually released this wearable robot. And this is an example of this kind of low body wearable robot. So first, people who have walking disabilities can use this wearable robot and can walk. At the same time, this HAR-5 can actually help you have your physical strength tremendously. As you can see in this picture, this person now is holding with one hand about, I think, at least I feel that 50 pounds of rice. This system even can make you a kind of Superman. You can lift this heavy box. So I believe that this type of the wearable robot can help seniors in the future. And then I believe that the technology will evolve much more. So this can be much more wearable in the future. Some other the technologies for the older driver. I mean, some new technologies are available for older drivers. This picture shows the GM's electric networked vehicle, or ENV. Somehow GM predicts that this type of small-sized automobile can be very popular in the future. And everybody knows that the gas price will steadily increase, not because not because of the shortage of oil. I mean, if we somehow think about kind of alternative oil sources like sand oils and high density oils and oil shales, I mean, those can be extracted and then can be a good source for gasolines. But because of environmental concerns and because of, I mean, very unstable international the environments, we somehow expect that the oil price will continuously increase. But one alternative may be some electric vehicles. And many seniors usually do not take a long distance trip. and they usually need transportation for their simple daily activities in their neighborhood or communities. So this type of the vehicle, electric vehicle, can be a good alternative to improve their transportation mobility. The GM NV concept is, again, the powered by electric motor vehicle, electric motor and lithium batteries. And it currently has battery power for about 25 miles on a charge. And then you can drive up to 25 miles per hour. Also, this MV can rotate 360 degrees. So it is very maneuverable. And also, it can be driven in manual mode with a driver or without drivers. So which means this has autonomous driving functions. So the seniors who have tremendous challenge in driving can use this type of vehicles for their transportation need. Also, the NV can detect and avoid obstacles. So this can improve traffic safety for the older drivers tremendously. So also it can park themselves and come by when called cell phone. But the important thing is none of these technologies is beyond the technology that exists today. So this actually, these two pictures shows this NV in China. So some of the GM thinks that the motorization in China will happen in China in the near future, and this type of small electric vehicle can be a good alternative in China. But I think that this MV also can be a good alternative for the suburban community travel needs for many seniors in our metropolitan communities. However, there are some issues in advanced technology. These are kind of advanced technologies. The issue is affordability. The second thing is the ease of use and learning. And we know that the senior may have a little bit slow learning curve. Also, the safety issues. The GMMV, it may not be popular because the drivers may be afraid of the the risk when they are involved in crashes. Also, there is it is important somehow minimize distraction. What I mean here is, they should not lose control of automobiles or something in order to use those the technologies while they are in motion. Also, there are some policy issues. For example, Medicare benefits and tax credits may need to be used for these mobility equipment and options. So we need somehow the infrastructure improvement to accommodate those new technologies. Also, there are some issues. Currently, the in-vehicle technology particularly is considered as convenience technology, not safety technologies. So then this may be maybe one reason that this may be for the automobile company to somehow do not want to take any liability issues when crashes occur. But if we somehow adopt this technology as a safety technologies, then government somehow can enforce, and then to be installed this type of the technologies as a base. then actually the older drivers can benefit a lot from these technologies. I think that it is very important somehow as a planners to pay attention on aging issues. Because basically as aging, it will be eventually everybody's issues. So everybody is aging, and then we all face these problems now or sometime in the later. I think this is my the last exercise for my presentations, and this is my contact information. So if you have any questions or any feedback, please send an email. Thank you very much for your attention, and have a good day afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks. We've had quite a few questions come in, and just to go over some common questions that were asked, can you please differentiate between like ex-urban and suburban from your earlier slides?
Okay. The ex-urban is basically rural areas. So the ex-urban, suburban, so it is classified as the rural area for the urban. Actually, did I answer your questions somehow?
Well, you're just saying that the ex-urban is the rural area. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So our next question is from Francis. Can you explain the difference between biological age versus chronological age, and why is biological age more important?
Okay. The biological age, chronological age is like ages 65, 60, and 67. But the person in age 80 may have more better physical functions and more cognitive functions. So that's why the biological age is more important than chronological ages. Right. So the people in age 80 plus, 80 or 85 can be more healthier than the senior in age maybe 70 or even 65. So what the reason why I'm saying this thing is you cannot just make for driver license issues. You cannot just make the driver age 70 plus should have reassessment. So truly chronological age-based kind of assessment doesn't make sense. That's what that's what I mean by actually the chronological age versus a biological age.
Okay. Our next question is from Jonathan. Regarding the traffic safety chart you showed, he's curious if the higher incident of death at the older age is because of the severity of the crash, or is it instead of the attributes to the decreased health and vulnerability of the elderly drivers? In other words, are the elderly drivers dying in crashes that younger drivers would survive?
Actually, that's a good question. Actually, in terms of the crash severities, older drivers tend to drive at lower speed. But they tend to make very unexpected driving behavior. So it can be both. That's my actually the answers.
Okay.
So the older drivers can more, so because of abrupt behavior, unexpected behavior, even though at lower speed, the crash can be very serious.
Okay. So is the movement to promote physical activity at younger ages an effective means to address physical mobility in the future?
I think that actually for this presentation, I only focused on the personal basically personal automobile issues primarily, but the physical activity, yes, they should have the seniors a lot. So how to let the senior to be more active, and then physically, that is a very important issue.
Okay. So a lot of your solutions that you have proposed are more technologically based. Mike
Correct.
is asking, how could like public transportation and urban design be improved to accommodate the special needs of the elderly mobility? So to try and get them more planning oriented.
Okay. It is my understanding that the most of the seniors want door-to-door transportation service. And so the traditional public transit service is not what they want. But so how to somehow provide better and door-to-door transportation service is, I think it's only possible through somehow coordinations among different the service providers. For example, paratransit service and the specialized kind of senior transportation service providers, and the volunteer-based the organizations that basically provide the transportation service for those. I think that many places, those different service providers are not really working together. There are some, good example like in Ohio, they have very comprehensive transportation coordination service. But in many places, we don't have it. So how to somehow coordinate those different transportation service providers in a one consolidated system can be I think is a very important issue. And then those that can help seniors a lot, I think. Also, the one of my actually in my presentation, I said that I indicate that for those who do not drive or cannot drive, the built environment matters a lot. So they can somehow alleviate transportation mobility problems. So the somehow make it more of the built environment that more actual pedestrian oriented built environments can help seniors a lot, particularly to those who don't drive.
So within that, you mentioned like the state of Ohio that has tried to implement these. Do you know of any other states that are already actively incorporating these planning techniques in their highway designs?
That's actually the a state of how can I say the Virginia. Actually, they are very active in implementing engineering improvements for all the drivers. And also the California, as far as I know, they are doing good. They actually trying to somehow implement those new engineering improvements techniques. But for me, I think that one of the most practical issue is door-to-door coordinated door-to-door transportation service for the elderly. It's very important, and how to basically make those existing vehicle technologies to help all the drivers is important. I think is important issues.
Okay, our next question, you kind of talked about the transit-oriented development. Can you explain to us, like, what do you see as the role of the transit-oriented development in the future? Like, will there be an increased demand?
The transit-oriented development, my actually question is these senior, particularly baby boomers, as a more automobile-oriented generation than current seniors. And then I expect that the driving may increase among the seniors in the near future as baby boomers grow older. So how to somehow how to encourage those seniors to use more transit can be a very challenging issue. But actually one of my studies shows that one of my studies found that the immigrant seniors are more likely to use public transit than non-immigrant seniors. So I think that those immigrants do not have so-called kind of stigmas on public transit, particularly bus services. So for me, I think that if we want to make the transit-oriented development as a way to somehow improve transit mobility of the older populations, is let the people let the people use public transit before they become seniors. When they experience the public transit and how to use it and become familiar with public transit before they old, then they may more likely to use public transit when they age.
Okay, we have a question that's going back to your presentation that you stated earlier. This is from John. The list of older drivers' functional impairments is almost the exact same as the impairments of drunk drivers, yet so far all the findings are pointing to encouraging elderly to drive, like more larger signs will serve to create more confusion, not to mention like creating problems with highway clutter. Like, how would you address that?
Okay, so that means, yeah. But the thing is, now actually it's time for us to think of a kind of universal design. It's not only for the seniors. Those universal design, the concept of universal design is basically becomes more important as we have more seniors in our society. So I feel that it is time for us to somehow think about the universal design, even not for all of the seniors, even people who are physically challenged, young people too. So for example, mobility the technologies I showed in these presentations can be used for, even the physically disabled, basically young generations, particularly the soldiers who return home with with disabilities. Those things can actually help them too.
Okay, so with the traffic problem and stuff, John is saying, like, given that the elderly have trouble taking advantage of gaps in the traffic systems, how should planners and engineers address the limitations when considering conversion of single controlled intersections to roundabouts?
Roundabout. Actually, the roundabout, I feel that the roundabout may require more cognitive process. So I feel that providing more clear kind of signals for seniors may be more beneficial for them. But yes, the roundabout can improve traffic traffic safety a lot. But how that will work for the seniors, we may need to investigate a little more on that issues. So there actually I feel there are a lot of research opportunities on these issues.
Okay, this is again earlier from your presentation. Katie is expressing, like, so if we know where the 20 to 29, the 30 to 64, and the 64 plus residents will likely live,
Mm-hmm.
do you see the post-iPod babies of today wanting to live? Like, do you see where they want to? Like, will they occupy the multifamily suburban residences that get built for today's senior population? Or
I think that I'm not a kind of economic expert. The thing is, I personally believe that there will be more increase in multi-unit kind of housing for seniors, given the fact that many seniors will face more economic hardships in the future. The income polarizations we have in our societies is basically giving us, more ideas about kind of low-cost housing alternatives. So I feel that in suburban areas, as my study found, the people who move for low housing costs, they tend to move to the kind of multifamily housing in suburban communities. But I ask myself the question, why? Then somehow I think that the redevelopment that occurred in urban areas, like high kind of rise condominium, very expensive condominiums, many seniors may not be able to afford. They may be for urban yuppies or professionals. So I think that the current kind of form of the urban redevelopment, I think that that type of development may not be affordable for many seniors. So I think that it is a time for us somehow to think about more kind of diverse housing options in suburban cores that somehow provide, the more alternatives and little better kind of the neighborhood level transportations and little with some more suburban amenities. I think the seniors may want that, probably, I think.
okay, just a little reminder out there for people. If you have any questions, feel free to send those in, and we'll try to get those answered. We still have around 10-15 minutes left of the presentation, so we still have plenty of time.
Okay.
Our next question is from James. Is the high rate of friends and families providing transportation assistance a major factor in the older people wanting to age in place, like to the extent that our children are moving away from their hometowns, like this affecting the parents' mobility, or has them following the children?
I think that yes. Now the majority of basically door-to-door service provider for the seniors are basically family members and friends. So somehow I think that it is better to somehow, for me, I think that it is important to somehow create multi-generational the neighborhoods. The current actually form of suburban development is only for basically family with kids. So I think that how to somehow develop the suburban communities that for everybody, different generation can be an important issues. Also, yes, their children may also live in suburban communities. So it is maybe very difficult for them to even, it is reasonable for them to somehow even stay in suburban communities.
So should we be considering housing options to maintain the greater family unit then? That's from James.
Actually, I think that I have a chance to interact with some architects, in my program, and they think that many years ago, the many houses, they have one house, in a single family unit, they have different quarter. So one for basically seniors, it has separate doors, but it's a separate quarter, but in one house. So I think that that type of housing development may be necessary. So I think that based on my interactions, I think that can be somehow popular because now in terms of taking care of seniors, we cannot rely on governments and taxpayers' money anymore. I think that the family members need to be more active, and they are expected to provide more service for their parents and grandparents. So the developing kind of housing unit that host multi-generations. I think that may be the way somehow we may need to consider in housing development.
Okay. This is from, again, earlier in your presentation. Kathleen was wondering, she understands how one could assume that the ability to drive is directly related to the less mobility. But what data supports the comment that older women experience less of a sense of well-being in correlation with giving up their driver license?
Oh, that one, actually, can you repeat that question again? And let me double check.
Yes, they were talking about they understand how one could assume that the ability to drive is directly related to less mobility, but what data supports the comment given by Sirens 2004 that older women experience less of a sense of well-being in correlation with giving up their driver's license?
I mean, Sirens. Actually, the Sirens study. Hang on. First of all, the well-being and then the mobilities. There's a number of studies showing that quality of life issues and mobilities. Actually, that's I think that there will be no shortage of reference for that. And for the reason why all those female seniors tend to relinquish their driver license is that it may be they are more likely to self-regulate than the males. So also the females are more likely to be afraid to be somehow taken away by taken away their driver's license. So that also maybe somehow reason for this. The older female have very low driver license holding rate. Also, the females, I think that tend to somehow have more social network than males. So they have so the asking the right may be more easier for them compared to somehow males.
All right. Our next question is from Lenore. So what is the power source for the HAL mechanical assistance machine? Like, what are the chances of the power source failing, thus causing injury to the person holding an object?
Okay, the battery is battery usually it's not like motor engines. Right? Battery is very stable, of course, but still the battery power can be failed. So that's a kind of some technological issues. But I feel that the technology will evolve eventually. And at least the power failures, particularly the personal kind of the may not directly basically harm them unless they are exposed to some other kind of object. But I feel that anyway, but I think that the technology will be there. And then the technology, they may have even backup power systems. Because now the battery has become, the size of batteries it's become smaller and smaller. So I think that the even backup kind of better service, I mean, may may have this type of basically some advanced technology, I think.
Okay, our next question is from James. There's a growing market to provide services to the household as mail prescriptions, movies, meals, etc. Are these helping to isolate the elderly and reduce the need for transportation? Or is it just that transportation is a social need just as well as a mobility issue?
I think that all, I mean, it applies all three, I think. But the thing is, I feel the seniors, they may want more social contact. I have one actually very important the personal experience I want to tell you. Many people think that the seniors they want to stay home and just watch TVs and read the books. But when I was a doctoral student in Seattle, I had a chance to visit at the neighborhood supermarket around lunchtime. I have never seen that many seniors in a small, basically, the relatively small kind of supermarket. It was full of the seniors, and they basically chatting, and even they playing. Chess. It was I feel that the most seniors wanting to be a couch potatoes. I think particularly they do not have jobs, when they have reduced human interactions, I feel that that is not good for their welfare. So I feel that still the mobilities, a decent mobility needs to be provided and needs to be available for them, even though there are growing a level of food delivery and other service delivery, service delivery services.
Okay. One second. Our next question is from Jeff. One major problem with access to traditional transit services is the first and last mile of the trip. How will this identified barrier change in the future? Like, will the problem be solved with technology?
I think that the reason why the seniors love to have door-to-door service is basically it's a convenience. And then I believe that many people out there who are hesitant to use public transit, fixed line public transit is basically it's because they have to transport. It's not really convenient for them. So I think that if they need to use all this advanced technology just to use between home and transit stations, I think they may not be that attractive. So I think that the door-to-door transportation service is the one that people want, at least based on many studies. And then it is actually possible and can be actually even efficient.
Okay, our next question is from Paul. How widespread is the deployment of low-floor buses? Do you know?
Actually, I do not have ideas about that, but I think that most public transit agencies are having that low basic flow of buses. I think that then it's also required to provide these kind of safe boarding for the physically challenged, basically transit riders. So but anyways, yeah. So I think that most transit agencies provide that kind of services.
Okay, and then our last question is from James. Is there a difference in downtown's transit use that focuses on destinations like senior centers, libraries, and malls in one area?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I couldn't understand the question very well. So can you rephrase that one?
Yeah. Is there like differences in downtown transit uses that focuses on like destinations to centers, libraries, malls, all in one area? Like, do you see those type of transit systems in downtowns where they have them specified for the senior living?
Honestly speaking, I have not seen that yet. But the thing is, actually, that is great. That if we have transit-oriented development, that with all these basically that has major activity centers for seniors, and then transportation service that connects them, that will be, I think, great. I think that's a great idea. Right. So now, in many suburban communities, all the location activities are basically very separated. I think even in urban areas, I think that they are somehow separated. So how to somehow consolidate and those, facilities in one location, and then provide transportation service that connects the location from various residential neighborhood, I think that would be great.
Okay, well, I just want to thank you, Dr. Kim, for giving today's presentation. We are getting close to running out of time, so I'm just going to go through a quick reminders for the people still listening. For those of you that are looking to claim SEAM credit for attending today's session, you'll need to go to www.planning.org/SEAM, then select activities by date, and then underneath Friday, March 25th, you'll see Planning for an Aging Society. And then, like I said earlier, we are recording today's session, so you'll be able to find a video recording and a PDF of today's presentation at www.utah-apa.org/webcast-archive, and this should be up by Monday. And you can find our archive list there as well, so previous webinars as well. So with that, I just would like to conclude today's session. Thank you.